la gente se va a comenzar a conectar, pero ya ahorita estamos en vivo.
Ya,
Entonces
perfecto.
voy a subir la presentación nuevamente porque no sé qué pasó con ella. Ya está lista.
Sería más fácil que yo pueda proyectar para que pueda hacer las transiciones entre bullet y bullet.
Perfecto, entonces hazlo tú. ¿Puedes hacerlo?
Sí, yo puedo hacerlo. Cuando tú me digas, la subo.
Súbela ahora para estar listo, porque ya faltan 2 minutos.
Ya, la subo.
Ahora. Y así tú te quedas solo y yo me quedo en el backend. Ya está. Ok. Entonces, cuando yo te voy a introducir y cuando termine la introducción, yo me voy a salir, va a quedar la presentación y es tu casa por media hora. Si
Ya, lo
necesitas,
que hago es, yo voy a compartir toda la pantalla y voy a poner en toda la pantalla la presentación para poder hacer las transiciones.
ya. Y al final yo te paso las preguntas porque la gente me va a hacer las preguntas a mí y yo te voy a hacer las preguntas a ti.
Ya, perfecto.
Listo. Entonces ya estamos. A un minutito. Ahorita lanzo. En 30 segundos entra al LinkedIn.
Ya.
Ya estamos en vivo por si acaso. Vamos a esperar unos 5 minutos y... Ya está. There we go. Okay, let's do this. Good morning. My name is Jose Burga, and I'm the president of the Peruvian Business Council. Thank you for your participation in this event. Today we have with us Pablo Secada. Pablo is an investor. He's a founding partner of Opportunity Investments and a founding partner of Enki Capital. Pablo is a renowned economist in Peru. He was the chief economist in the Peruvian economist. He is also a politician. He is a council member of the municipality of Lima. Today he's going to talk about the social factor investments in Peru. When we talk about social factor, we are thinking about ESG and impact investments. I believe, thank you so much for helping us today. And I'm gonna leave the floor for you to do this presentation, make this presentation.
Thanks, Jose Carlos. Thanks for the invitation. I'll share with you a very brief presentation. I'll start for the boutique, the investment banking boutique we run here in Peru, and I'll end without it because I'll talk a bit about politics at the end. I'm no longer part of Enki. I was one of the founding partners, but I'm no longer part of the factoring company. They are doing an amazing job. I'll share the presentation so I can use the I can go from one to the other. Let me do it. Okay, we're done. Okay, this is it. I will run you through some of the experiences Peru has had with ESG that I think are worth commenting on. They have already done what I'm going to mention. There are other things that are being developed, but these are real. These are already working. One is ShareDex. It's an impact capital company. It was a $65 million investment. They basically bought coffee, cocoa, and other plantations. They set them up, actually. They bought the land and set the plantations up. And once they were up and running, they started to grant technological support to their neighbors. So they ended up supporting 15,000 small peasants that basically crop cocoa and coffee, as I mentioned, but they got everything. They got the seeds, they got the agronomics, they got the logistics, the commercial effort, and they are exporting in some cases. In other cases, they are selling in Peru. They haven't done an impact evaluation properly, in my opinion, but the impact indicators they had suggest that the impact has been enormous. So that's an example. Originally, Wheatsheaf, an English fund that was owned by one of the Dukes of Westminster. He later died, and the fund was sold to Grosvenor. And the other fund that invested was Partners Group Impact. And there are a set of family offices in Asia, the US, and locally have invested in ShareDex. The chairman of the board is a former Kleiner Perkins, a fund manager. He also ran the green fund at Kleiner Perkins, so he's the guy that got this funding mostly. The other example I would like to touch upon is Acceso Crediticio. It used to be what we called in Peru an EDPYME. EDPYMEs were microfinancial institutions that didn't access the deposits. They were only financed initially by the European cooperation, but later they became companies. Now they are called credit companies in Peru. Acceso Crediticio was one of them. They lost their license after COVID, but they have been very successful in getting money from both official sources of funding and ESG funds in Peru. They basically lend money to people that drive cabs, but the caveat is that you have to drive a cab fueled by gas, or you have to turn your car with a gasoline car into a gas car. And you basically pay Acceso every time you tank your car. Every time you go to the gas station and you put gas into your tank, you're paying to Acceso Crediticio. It's also a very interesting case to take a look at, because they probably closed 30 deals in the past several years. I think 7 of them are from official sources, and the rest are from ESG funds in Europe mostly. The third example I would like to touch upon is NatDan, where we are actually advising them, and they have their financing closed. What they are doing is a group that is involved in, it was originally involved in the 90s in asparagus. Then they became heavily involved in blueberries, and they sold a part of the blueberry operation. It was a huge operation to a Chilean group, which is a leading world group in blueberries. They also have a chicken operation in the northern part of Peru. But what they are doing with the company we're trying to finance, we think we will not have any issues in financing them, is they are buying, not buying, they are allowing people that are cropping avocados in the Andean to process their avocado fairly. Because a lot of small producers in Peru, when they try to process either their gold or their copper or their silver or their produce from agricultural processes, they are usually basically ripped off by a corporation running the processing facilities. So what this group is trying to do is to treat them fairly, right? If your avocados are weighed whatever and their quality is whatever, and the yield on the processing plant is whatever, this is what you're gonna get. So they are exporting $14 million of avocados from the Andean now. Avocados from the Andean, they have a different seasonal production process than avocado from the coast in Peru. Generally speaking, Peru enters the market before Chile does, and Chile enters the market before Mexico does. Mexico is a world leader producer of avocados. Well, the Andean avocados enter the market before the avocado from the coast, so they get a better price. So it has a lot of potential what they're doing. What is happening, and why is that this is not becoming more frequent in Peru? Why is it not part of public policy? There are, of course, a lot of political issues in Peru, institutional issues, but on top of them, people working in public policy, generally speaking, they are used to doing public policy the way it was done in the past. The way a country without the investment grade would run public policy, the way a country that doesn't know how to bring investors to the table in areas where investors do not, venture on their own, because you either need blended finance, or you need a guarantee, or you need, a plan or whatever, right? But the thing is that they are not doing that. And it could be done, it could be, amplified. We would love to share what we've learned. It's not that much, as you see, it's not that many operations, but this is the start of the ESG and impact capital story in Peru. We haven't seen any interest from business association in these experiences. We sat the former head of the research institution, public research institution for agricultural issues. It's called INIA. He was the head of that in 2001, and he's a CEO for ShareDex. We had sat him with the general manager of the main agribusiness association. It was a nice chat. It was a nice dinner, a nice lunch, actually, but they didn't do a thing. I've talked to other business associations involved in agribusiness, and they don't seem to be interested in the issue. I really don't get why. Because if you spend $250,000, say, in building a solid business plan, having the design of a baseline to carry out an impact evaluation in the future, and you get, you become friends with your neighbors and offer them the possibility of associating with your company with theirs in the future, you do it. And you get, say, 10 million euros, and you get venture capital for your own facility. ShareDex didn't put money in the table. Everything they got from the funds. So it's VC that you use to set up your own company, and you transfer technology to the others, subsidized by the ESG funds or the impact capital funds. Before going into productivity and then moving on to Peru, the same goes for ESG. I mean, there's a group, the same group I just mentioned, the group in charge of the avocado company. They are looking into foresting, a river basin, and they are looking into managing the river basin, because the water that comes down that river basin into the irrigation project where they have their investments, is very dirty, and the filters to filter that water are extremely expensive. So one way to do things is, without continuing to invest in expensive filters, you invest in a project to forest the basin and manage the basin. You do a lot of good for Peru. You are a far better neighbor than you already are. And on top of that, you get cleaner water in your irrigation project. So that's the basic story. Is there are a few experiences going on. We haven't seen interest from the government. We haven't seen interest from most of the business groups. We hope that the second goes before the first, which is more likely, but it's a bit of a pity that the business associations don't look into this with more interest and pay more attention to it. I'll go briefly to the productivity story in Peru. I'll show you a graph, and then I'll comment a few things about politics in Peru and what's going on. This is total factor productivity in Peru according to the Penn World Table. It's a series starts
Pablo,
in 19...
Pablo, perdón, ¿podrías share the presentation again? I think we lost the presentation.
Yeah, sure.
You see it now? Do you see it now?
Yes, Pablo.
Okay, so this is total factor productivity according to the Penn World Table. The other source that we usually use is the conference board data. The two tell more or less a similar story. Productivity is a fraction of what it was in the 60s. With all the gains, the productivity gains that were related to the reform process that took place between 1990 and 94 have been lost. You'll only see the series here until 2019, which is the PWT data. But if you take a look at the conference board, you're going to see that the 2023 TFP estimated by the conference board is lower than that of 1990. So it's sad. We gained a bit and then we lost, so that we are back to where we started. This is, I'm not using opportunity investments template now. I'm trying to morph into a politician. I'm not going to run for office in the coming elections, but I'm going to continue to work with whoever wants to run for office and is a honest person, a person that, is not a crook, basically. We're going to be working for several congressional candidates of different political parties. I'm putting political parties, as you see, because I don't think there's any political party in Peru. They are basically electoral vehicles. We're going to also support candidates for subnational governments. When I say we, I'm talking about other politicians. I'm talking about campaign professionals. I'm talking about business leaders. I'm talking about former public servants. I'm going and talking about what we call dirigentes in Peru, which are the leaders for either markets, mercados de abastos, or galerías, which are small malls that are the ones that people in middle income segments and low income segments use. We're talking about leaders in the education sector, the health sector, and so forth. So we're working with a handful of people from different groups. Most of them will run in different platforms, but that's the way it's going to be. We will continue to work in making proposals and participating in debate. I'll just give you one example. The mining corridor, the way we call it, where 3 large mines are to be located, which are Las Bambas. It's owned by a Chinese group. It was originally owned by Glencore, by Extrata, but it had to be sold because of a European ruling about market abuse of Glencore. Then we have Antapacay that belongs to Glencore. Antapacay and Bambas were originally going to be part of the same mine. And they have Constancia, which belongs to Hadbay. The 3 mines have such a large volume, export such a large volume that you could build a cargo train without public investment. That's what I heard from French investment banks, Japanese investment banks, as you know well, are the leaders in project finance. My former colleagues at Santander Investment in Madrid think the same. We've talked to people at the IFC, at the BID Invest, and most believe that, yeah, it could be done. You would need to carry out feasibility study to be sure. But if there's a possibility to have a train in the corridor that goes to the Marcona port, and you will have, by investing in that, the ability to invest in a large irrigation project, was set up in the 60s and it was designed in the 60s. It has never seen the light. Would you rather have that? Or you would rather have Bambas trucking their 500 trucks or more a day of basically copper concentrates to a port in southern Peru, being stopped by the communities to which they sell the trucks and they grant them contracts to move the cargo? It's a no-brainer, right? So if it is a no-brainer, why is that no one is doing it? Why is the Ministry of Finance not taking care of it? The Ministry of Transport not taking care of it? The Ministry of Energy and Mines? What is that local business association in charge of mining, the Sociedad Nacional de Minería, not doing anything about it? It beats me. I don't have a clue. I've done my part. I've talked to a number of people. I'm not the only one trying to assess the idea, but it's just not happening. So we're going to continue to propose things like this, start using an NGO as a base, because again, I'm not running for office in the coming elections. We're also going to it's a new thing. We just got the agreement to do it. We're in the process of designing it, to set up a foundation in Peru to work in long-term projects. It's far more ambitious than just an election. Projects like which? What about biotech and biomed? When we worked at the Ministry of Finance in 2008, trying to set up the Sovereign Wealth Fund for Peru, we were hooked by Foreign Minister Valdivieso to Temasek, the Singapore fund, to Kasana, the Malaysia fund, and other funds, Nor Fund and others. And the first thing they talk to you about Peru is biotech and biomed. They think Peru has a huge potential in biotech and biomed. Public policy is ridiculous. So scientists are organizing themselves to set up this foundation with us and try to promote biotech and biomed and investments in the industry. Conservation projects. Have you ever heard about, say, a 500,000 hectare conservation project in Peru's Amazon? I haven't. Norfund invests in Ecuador and in Colombia. If you talk to Norfund and ask them, why don't you come to Peru? They tell you because there are no projects in Peru to preserve such a large area of the Peruvian Amazon. Between 2001 and 21, 2.47 million hectares of the Peruvian Amazon have been deforested. So are we going to do something about it? Are we just going to issue new laws? Are we hire more consultants to tell us what we already know? Or are we going to act? And are we going to set up a conservation process in the Amazon? Are we going to use impact capital to associate the small producers, which are the neighbors and so forth? So that is the type of things we want to do in the foundation. In urban development, there's already a law that allows investors to invest in what is called plan específico. It's a specific urban plan. Last year, with two urban planners, Tito Fernandez Dávila, Aldo Facho, their lawyer, their associate, their partner, Ramón Chejade, former Minister Luis Valdivieso, he also worked at the IMF for a long while. We proved that you can finance a specific urban plan. It was to be a $300 million in sales, $43 million in profits. The owner of the land at the end decided to sell the land or offer the land at a price that was ridiculous. So we didn't do it. But you can do it, forcing the owner to sell the land in a contract before doing the specific plan and getting the money. So we just proved it is feasible. We also learned that, the feudalistic owners of land in Peru don't care much about business. Inclusive and sustainable projects, I mentioned the basin project. This is also important. There are already two projects of green methane and one green ammonia project running in Peru. One is being financed and designed by Marubeni and Hunt. That's a project that is far more advanced than the other. It's a methane project, a green methane project. Verano Energy, the developer of a large part of solar projects in northern Chile, is also investing in an ammonium project in Peru. Again, is the government promoting a fertilizer plant or a fertilizer project based on the ammonium project? No, it is not. So it should, right? Because a few years ago, with the war in Ukraine and COVID, small peasants in Peru didn't have access to fertilizers because there were none for them. Whereas the agribusiness companies just bought, fertilizers at a more expensive price. So, and the last comment, what about the Trump government? I just listened to a EIU webinar on the US elections. If it were not for former Ambassador Lisa Kenna, if it were not for former SEALs and Marines in Peru, if it was not for policemen, there are specialized policemen that investigate the worst of Peru's crooks. The December 7, 2022 coup d'etat by Castillo would probably have led in a different direction. So it was very important for Peru that we had Lisa Kenna as ambassador. She did a lot of things that were extremely important for us. Would that be the case if Trump were to win again? Or would that be another contingent, a huge contingency that Peru would face? That was my presentation. I hope you have questions, but the basic idea here is that we're not trying only to focus on politics, which is very complicated. It's a puzzle, it's a riddle to some extent. For some, for us, for others, it is not. What Peru is witnessing is the third attempt to meddle in politics from foreign governments. In 2006, it was Chavez, the Cubans, and Evo Morales. In 2011, it was the Lavallato. In 2021, it is the spy that acts as if he's the ambassador, the Cuban ambassador in Peru, Carlos Zamora, with Cuban intelligence, Venezuelan intelligence, Evo Morales, and a myriad of former Shining Path and other associations in Peru. So that is what we're confronting. Do we have the strength to go out of that trap in the coming elections? I doubt it. So we would rather work in two areas, right? Politics, ESG, and the foundation to bring forth some of the large scale and long-term projects that Peru deserves.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you so much for these presentations. I really love that you did a comparison or a connection between the policy and politics and the investment side of the game, and the investment side of the game. Now, I'm gonna take the opportunity to make the first question, and I'm gonna ask this. Like, yes, we have an issue in. Well, it seems to me that you are showing us the picture of what is Peru is actually in many aspects and many sectors. You have entrepreneurs, you have real people that is really working hard to make the economy as solid as it is and resilient as it is shown to be. And then on the other side, you have politics, debate, ideology, and everything that comes along with, especially with politics. Now, the side of the politics doesn't provide the policy frame that the business people need to move, and in that, from that perspective, is frustrating. Now, how do you see these two aspects connecting outside the ideological debate of ESG and impact investment and sustainable investment in general, and the reality and the capacity of doing business in Peru, in with social aspects, no? In the social world?
I didn't mention the mercados de abastos. Mercados de abastos are the traditional markets that we in Peru use to buy basically, produce, right? So if you go to a mall, you can go into there are two large chains here in Peru. It's Cencosud owns Wong and Metro, and Intercorp owns Vivanda and Plaza Vea. You can buy potatoes there, you can buy whatever, you artichokes, you can buy, whatever you want, apples. For between a third and half the price, you can buy them in the Mercado de Abastos. So when I started in politics in 2001, one of the things we did is we went to a mercado, a large market in Lima called La Parada. La Parada is the last stop. The last stop was named that way because it was the last stop before the original wholesale market in Peru that was basically part of the city at that point. So when I went to La Parada with my father in the 80s, it was a different experience. When I went to La Parada in 2001, it was dreadful. It was dirty. It was unsecure. The shoes I used to go to La Parada were smelly days after I went to La Parada, right? The same people that were in La Parada in 2001 moved to a mercado that they call the Promised Land, Tierra Prometida, in Santa Anita, very close to the modern wholesale market that Peru has in Santa Anita. And they are working together market finance and working together market modernized. It was not an issue financing the market. They were not the owners of the land. They were renting the land from the municipality. So we talked to funds abroad. We talked to local small-size financial institutions, and they were eager to finance the market. Caja Metropolitana from the municipality wants to finance the market, so we're going to do it. They are going to do it eventually. We're also working with the leaders there and with the management there to set up a market in Pucallpa. Pucallpa is in the Peruvian Amazon. And when you go to Pucallpa, to give you an idea, 4.2 hectares of land in Pucallpa are worth 1.5 million soles. So $400,000, $4.2 hectares by the highway. Then you invest a bit more and you set up what we call a transitory mercado. And then eventually when the mercado has strong commercial display, you finance it with the microfinancial institutions. There are 3,000 mercados in Peru. Tierra Prometida will have a water treatment, will have a solid treatment, will have solar panels, will have areas that have 15 degrees Celsius to preserve, the produce, and areas that allow you to freeze it. They will have a large platform for trucks and for people that visit them. it will be a mall, right? It will be similar to a mall. There are others that do it. One of the first one is a mercado in Callao. It was set up by Grupo Romero, the owners of Banco de Crédito and other PCP and Credit Corp, generally speaking. So that's a way to do business, promote development, make money, and it's extremely resilient to politics. Lourdes Flores, I worked with her in 2 decades ago. One of the main political support that she had in Peru was La Parada. And the leaders of La Parada moved to Tierra Prometida. And they are there. You know, they know how to deal with politics. They don't have any issue with politicians. So there will be opportunities in the coming decade for debt funds in the US and Europe and Asia, private equity funds, to come to Peru and invest in the market, in such a market. That is a way to get the whole thing, right? You get a good investment, you get good fees if you're an advisor, you have political resilience, you promote welfare, you know, the whole thing. The same goes with the other examples I put forward, right? So it is a way, in my opinion, that should be explored in parallel before we get out of the woods in politics, right? Because it is a way to strengthen the country, it is a way to promote development, and it is a way to have investments that are not so heavily correlated with political uncertainty.
Very interesting. You know, like you asked if people know about any group trying to buy land in the rainforest of Peru, or and I haven't heard that. I have heard of a group of people that moved from the U.S. The last couple of years, and they were trying to buy land, but basically to take it out of the market in order to promote carbon financing. But I don't know if they were successful on this. And the other thing is, I believe they were trying to do this from a theoretical and ideological perspective, and not from a banking financing perspective.
You need coordination, right? So either you do it from a business association or you do it from the government. The way we're doing it takes far more time, right? Because we don't have the government ability to promote policy, right? Mm-hmm. But that our idea is to show them that it can be done, right? Mm-hmm. If it can be done in Tierra Prometida, it can be done in another market. If it can be done in ShareDex, it can be done in another venture, and so on, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna ask. I think we have a question from Cesar Guedes. Cesar, are you there?
Yes. Hello. Hola, Pablo, Jose Carlos. Hello. Hi. Good evening. Good night from Hanoi, from Vietnam. Very interesting presentation, Pablo. Thanks for the excellent points that you have raised. Well, I'm also a member of the Peruvian Business Council Board of Directors, and one of the areas that strikes me with more attention, connected to my line of work, it's on security, drug trafficking, and all that sort of topics. So I used to work for the UN on these domains. And obviously, there has been a big resurgence of coca cultivation in the Eastern Andes and in the Amazon, like we have never seen before. And the levels of coca cultivation are equivalent to those very infamous years of the 1980s, in which really narco trafficking was really enquisted in different segments of the economy and the social fabric of Peru. Probably now it's more, still very profitable, but probably it is less violent, or probably more low profile, but also with rendering high levels of profit. So I see more in your presentation in the important possibility for investments in Peru, and of course how the social factor fits in. And I would like to go into, for example, in the VRAE and all these regions, El Pichis, Palcasu, VRAE, the valleys that have been seeing a huge surge of coca cultivation. And if there is any way or possible policy to reconnect the government to take back control of these areas by investing in sustainable agriculture. They have been in the past very successful, or moderately successful interventions on alternative development that we had in Modelo San Martin and cocoa production and coffee. But I think in the last years, with all this political instability, the government is not on top. But how civil society and how the private sector, in conjunction with farmers in the area, can really find a way to use those very rich arable lands for a better purpose. And also, well, being myself here in Asia, Peru is signing a lot of free trade agreements with countries in the region. How can these lands be put to use in a more profitable, or let's say more legal, probably less profitable, but more legal way, in order to increase agricultural produce? Certainly, in those areas of the Eastern Andes and the Amazon, there might be, for sure, other products that can also render good results and export them to markets abroad, but also for the local market in Peru. So this is a little bit of my reflection, but also the question that I would like sort of to give us some hints, some lights. How do you see this? Because it's a reality, and Peru is a number 2 producer of cocaine, and the number 2 country with the highest levels of coca cultivation. Over to you. Thank you.
A bit of data. Between 2015 and 22, according to the UN, potential cocaine production, that's the way they calculate it, because they look at harvested land and they look at productivity and they assess how much could be produced. But that has tripled. Yes. Between 2015 and 22, it tripled. The numbers that I've seen in Peru do not add up. There was a book by the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung from Germany, and according to them, I don't remember the number, but it didn't make any sense. The best number I've seen, it was produced by a number of Colombian researchers, and it came out in the Bloomberg terminal. According to their calculations, Colombia was exporting $18.2 billion of cocaine in 2022. Colombia that year had a potential production of 1,500 tons of cocaine, whereas Peru had 940. But Colombia prevents a lot of cocaine from being exported because they seize a lot of cocaine in Colombia. If you deduct the amount of cocaine they seize and assume that they both are paid the same price and both generate more of the same number of exports, Peruvian exports of cocaine should be around $15 billion. So it's massive. The most expensive political campaign that I know of was in 2011. It was the Humala campaign financed by the Lavachato. It was worth $25 million.
Yeah.
So, the firepower that the drug lords have to meddle into Peruvian politics is huge. Back to your question. The projects I've seen from USAID and others in BRAEM, in my opinion, do not make any sense. They are basically transferring money to improve productivity from people that, for example, produce pineapple. Fine, you have a lot of pineapple, but how do you get it out? You're at the other side of the Andes without roads, without airport, without whatever, right? And your pineapple is probably not suited for exports. So you should transform it, in a way that the FDA would allow you to sell in the US. The prices don't add up. If you do the numbers, it is just not competitive. So if you wanna do it, you have to subsidize it, right? Or go for far larger projects with a different, way of being designed, like the project I mentioned from ShareDex, right? ShareDex has, the people that run ShareDex have talked to the government, have talked to the US government, and they are like, yeah, your thing is a beauty, but it's not gonna happen, at least in the short term. The best economic analysis I've seen in my life on Brahim was carried out by the head of the Banking Association in Peru, the former head of the banking superintendents, Martin Naranjo. What he did is he did a microeconomic analysis on the peasants cropping coca. It was a different part of a different story, right? Because you used to produce coca paste and ship it to Colombia. So it's far more complicated now. But a coca plant gives you five. You can crop it 5 times in a year.
5 times in a year, exactly. Yeah.
You can use the worst land that you have, and it still goes, right? Because it has the alkalinity, so it's very resistant to whatever, right? So what he said is you need micro insurance program to the peasants, a micro health program, a micro life insurance program, and so forth, right? Because what they told him, what his analysis led him to believe, is that they have coca because coca insures them against price fluctuations in pineapple and the rest of products that they can produce. So the approach to development in Brahim doesn't make sense. The bad story, which is a good story for Brahim, is that Brahim used to be the bulk of coca production in Peru. It is not anymore. But Brahim is supposed to be only 40% of cocaine production in Peru now. So cocaine production has spread across Peru. So Brahim is not a big thing as it used to be in the past. Military speaking, I've talked to people that have gone to Brahim, and they told me it doesn't make sense. It's full of mountains. There's no way to go around them. If you use a chopper, they shoot at them, and who shot you, because it could come from any of the surrounding mountains. If you put people in the ground, and the people in the ground don't have experience in fighting, they are killed by people that live there. If you put the commandos, they are not confronted. They are just not confronted. So the commandos are never confronted, right, in Brahim, because they don't have the firepower or the training that the commandos have, so they just don't confront them. So the commandos run freely, right? And no one appears to confront them, right?
Yeah, no, it's a very abrupt territory. Reminds me, I'm in Vietnam, and parts of Vietnam remind me very much to what I see in France. So inaccessible.
It is clearly not you don't have to be that smart to link the politicians to drug trafficking, right? So I'd rather put politicians in jail that give trouble to the people that live in Brahim. Some of these people live there, and their fathers or their uncles or their whatever were killed by the army in the 80s. So they don't want to talk to a commando. They want to talk to anyone, right? So it is not a military solution. These small programs by USAID and other consulting firms, in my opinion, do not make any sense, economically speaking. Martin Naranjo's approach was far better. And now you have the ability to finance ESG projects, to finance impact capital projects. So I would go there. What if the government were to organize a webinar such as this, between ESG and impact capital funds in the US, Asia, and Europe, and entrepreneurs that want to get their money, right? Just a webinar. Not even that. I mean, the first discussion I had with the government on this issue was more than 10 years ago, when ShareDex started to develop. And in 10 years, they haven't done a thing.
No, it's really a big challenge. It's a head cracking approach.
It's good to know that you're involved in the issue, Cesar, because we have to talk after the presentation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been working 20 years with UNODC in 4 continents, so. But anyway, I continue active.
Well, we have to bring the funds. We have to bring the funds to the table and bring economics to the table, not consulting and government issues.
Okay. I was thinking Cesar was being humble because he has worked in the 5 continents of the world as a United Nations representative in the side of crime and prevention. So, and he's now in the last post that Cesar had was Afghanistan during the withdrawal of the U.S. forces. So
yeah, Cesar, we're going to have fun because the funds are there. I mean, I talk to the funds just for fun because there are no projects here, right? When they come to Peru and visit Machu Picchu, they stop by, we talk for an hour or two to the sovereign wealth funds, to the large funds, to the ESG and impact capital funds. I know people in Thailand, for example, they told me, okay, let's put 100 million to work in the Amazon. I say, wow, 100 million?
Yeah, exactly.
We have to work hard to get you 100 million project, man.
No, and for example, you mentioned Thailand.
Like the potential is there.
Yeah, Thailand was a very successful country in combating illicit cultivation of poppy seed. And there's this foundation, the Doi Tung Foundation, that really turned over. And now those lands are with a participation specifically of the royal family and other entrepreneurs, turn the ball the other way. Now those lands are very productive for exports or other industries.
The scientists are coming back, right? Carlos Bustamante is probably Peru's most renowned scientist. He teaches at Berkeley and he has a laboratory there. And some of the people that he taught and trained are coming back or have come back. Paul Millón, Eduard Malaga, Tony Salas, the guy from ShareDex, Mariana Leguía, right? And yeah, they are very capable at getting money for their papers. They know their thing, right? But what if we work with them in a biotech and biomed foundation in the US? My uncle, Jorge Secada, he teaches at UVA and he wants to be a part of the foundation as well. So it could be one of the sciences, it could be Jorge, it could be former Minister Valdivieso, it could be the president of the board of ShareDex, John Denniston. It would be a dream foundation, right? So something like that. That would be the idea.
Good. Yes. Okay, thank you, Pablo.
Thank you, Cesar, for your participation. Pablo, I wanted to ask you about more specifically about the sector that, we know that agriculture shows a lot of potential, but I would like you to talk a little bit more about mining, because, small projects in mining and social investing, and also the factor of illegal mining and the policy in the middle.
Okay, about small mines in gold and silver, I'm working with Jaime Cortez. He worked in the past for MMG, Rio Tinto, Yanacocha, and Goldfields. And he's not advising or consulting anymore. What he's doing he's becoming a partner to the owner of a small silver mine in this case, and in the future a small gold mine also. What you basically do is, if you charge a small mine the consulting fees for people that have, world experience in corporations, they cannot pay for them, and they will not pay for them because they don't have experience in getting good consulting work. If you partner with them, you start working on the mine. The bottleneck for growth of small mines in Peru is, of course, not the mine. It is the plant. Because you have a concession and you have a mine. I know people that you could shoot a film with them because they are so charming, right? That own mines, and you ask them and they tell, my grandfather had a mine and his grandfather had the same mine and his grandfather had the same mine. We mine forever, right? And they tell you why people say that mines and agricultural products don't go hand in hand. If you look there, this is our agricultural field, right? And we cropped it because we eat from there, right? And we take care that the solvents don't go near it and don't go to the water and don't destroy it. So we would need to promote project finance in small plants. You know that the mining law in Peru tells you that if you process less than 350 tons a day, you're a small mine, right? And you don't take your regulator is not the Ministry of Energy and Mines, but the local director of mines from the regional government. So you have different stories, right? Because there's mining basically throughout Peru. You could be dealing with 12 of those. It is basically impossible that the 12 at the same time are crooks that don't let you work, right? You will always have the ability to work with them. So one thing we're exploring is to partner with small mines, build a plant, design a strategy to take advantage of the mine and grow from there. In illegal mining, you have different stories. If the illegal mining is in the Amazon basin, they're basically mining in the rivers. They are mining in the rivers, and to get more gold out of the river, what they do is they use dragas. I don't know how to say dragas in English, but they use these dragas in the river. So they destroy the river and they destroy the surroundings and they destroy everything, right? And some even use solvents in the river. So imagine pouring solvents in the Amazon in a big river, right? You are destroying people's livelihoods in hundreds of kilometers around it, right? So it's a different story. In Colombia, they do it properly in the rivers. We should take a look at that. It is sustainable. It is really sustainable. There's a way to do it. So that would be one way of doing it. The other mines, the illegal mines that are mining in northern Peru, they're mining in southern Peru, basically across Peru, the way to bring them to formality, in my opinion, is to promote plants. Because you increase cash flow generation by a long extent, you prevent the existing processing plants that take advantage of the small miners to take advantage of them. So that's what I would do there. You asked about the large mining sector. I mean, we have extremely amazing examples. Freeport-McMoRan invested in the water plant for Arequipa. Anglo American, the owner, Freeport-McMoRan is the owner of Cerro Verde. Anglo American is the owner of Quellaveco. They have set up a plan for the redevelopment of the region where they work. Antamina, the mine in northern Peru, close to Lima, in Ancash, they are the leaders in what we call obras por impuestos. The Peruvian government allows you to pay some of your taxes in public works. So you have to present a project to the government, they approve it, and you get a certificate that allows you to pay your taxes with the certificate and not pay taxes. If those certificates are turned into securities, the U.S. banks and the European banks could securitize obras por impuestos and finance the builder. So it would promote, far more obras por impuestos that we see. If obras por impuestos were part of the plan, it would even have more impact. So there are lots of things to do, but my basic question is, why is that the mines don't have a better sense of politics? Why is that the mines don't have a better sense of development? And why is that at least the serious mines, I've mentioned a few, I mentioned 3, why is that they don't work together? Tony Salas, the CEO for ShareDex, proposed Southern Peru to build, over time, it takes a long while, of course, an organic olive new generation cooperative in the Valle del Tambo, close to the mine. They didn't do it. Originally they suggested to use water from channels in Peru. Then they said that we're going to desalinize water. Fine, they're going to desalinize water, but they haven't done a thing. They could have started their organic olive new generation co-op years ago. It would already have been working, and the feasibility of Tia Maria would be far greater, right? So if you don't have a government that's what it's supposed to do, you should do it. If the way that you promote development is these big business meetings, and they all tap their backs, and say that you're the best and you're the best. No, the best, you're the best. You're the best. We're not going anywhere. They should be more humble. They should talk to people that know about public policy in the 21st century, and they take care of business.
So basically, what we are getting from this conversation is Peru has a potential in the impact and in sustainable investing, impact, ESG, even blending financing. There are projects that are being implemented in a very coordinated way, but the absence of the state, of the government, is significant. And
you will not have government, right? We had what we have. Dina Boluarte is there, to take the baton and give it to Zamora in 2026. The right is totally confused about what's going on. Dina Boluarte is not one of theirs, right? So you don't have the government, and you will not have the government until 2026, and you will probably not have a government until 2031. So, either you take care of business and start doing things properly, or you're going to continue to complain about the mines that are not being developed and the copper price booming because of EV demand and so forth, right? So if I were them, I would do it. You have to talk to former Minister Valdivieso. You have to talk to Eduardo Moron at PESEC. He worked with us as a ministry. You have to talk to John Denniston. You have to talk to the people I mentioned. You have to travel to Asia. You have to travel to Europe. You have to travel to the US and Canada. You have to bring them to Peru. You have to talk to the Chileans and the Colombians and the Mexicans because they're in the same boat. Exactly. Chile doesn't produce cocaine, but 128 metro stations were burned, and they were using chemical accelerators there. So they don't show up in metro stations on their own. They don't walk to the metro station. Someone put them there. It was not Boric, not Camila, not Gabriel, right? It was the same guy, Zamora and his pals. So we have to be conscious of where we stand and where the challenges, and we have to move as much as far as we can on our own.
Which is the story of Peru, of success in Peru, in the end.
It is the story. I mean, I was 19-year-old when I went to the Ministry of Finance for the first time in 1991, right? And there was Fritz Dubois. I worked with him at IPE. It was Roberto Abusada. It was Pepe Valderrama, Ñato Jalili, Eduardo Herrera. We were blessed to have, that extremely good team in the 1914, and then they stayed until 98. I took them to roadshows. We met there. When I was working at Santander Investment, I took them throughout the world, and we don't have people like them, anymore. But what we have is what we have. I mentioned a few names. There are a number of other names, but we have to organize and we have to get things done. The mining sector has to stop, believing that by doing obras por impuestos and paying their taxes and investing in their mines, things are going to change. They are not going to change. They have to do far more than they do as of now.
I mean, you have to match the effort that is being posted on the other side.
Yeah, but
and they are activists. They are militants.
I'll give you a very positive message. Let's go back to North and institutions and the importance of institutions, and let's remind ourselves that Peru is not another country, right? The third oldest civilization in the world, Caral, exactly. Took place in Peru. That dozens of other civilizations took place here, right? And that shows. When you talk to Aida Rojas from Tierra Prometida, she's the leader and the heart and the brains of Tierra Prometida. She came to Lima carrying 2 childs on her back, and now he owns a small galleria and has her post in Tierra Prometida and will have her post in a new market, right? She needs to be the way they are organized among themselves and the way the institutions that they created hundreds of years ago work.
Yeah.
So we do not to tell them how to do things. They are going to tell us how to do
Yeah.
things. We need to tell them the things we know. I know how to talk to a fund. I know how to seal a deal. I know to get financing. They don't know that, right? But we shouldn't advise them on institutional design, right? It was designed hundreds of years ago and it works. So what if we bring them to the table? Far more than we have. Why we're partnered with them? You know, why we do business with them? You know, that is going to be positive for the country, no matter what happens in cocaine, in Russia, Putin, Xi, and the whole story, right?
Yeah. Pablo, I think it's time to say thank you to everybody. Thank you. Again, it's nice seeing you. And I know you since 2011. We met in a business round that I was supporting back then, and I'm glad. I'm always following your opinions. I think that you are very. I like the direct way that and very straightforward thinking you have, and especially since 2 years ago that we have that conversation. I like that you are every day more involved. Back then, 2-3 years ago, you were still thinking how to integrate social, sustainable investing in any of the reforms in Peru. And you see in 3 years how long you have gone. And I believe that what you're saying is it has a lot of sense in terms of, we need to talk more about this. And we need to bring to the table all these players, not only locally. The Peruvian Business Council is making an effort to constantly to bring together actors that are all over the place. Like our events reach people in multiple countries, in multiple countries. I expect this event to be streamed to at least 12 countries today, and we have a base. And we have also changed. We are changing the profile of our institution. We want to be more focused on the debate and the discussions, and than the previous phase where we were more generic and macro, and we were seeing gigantic projects. We have been facilitated. We didn't have any role, but just facilitating the encounter of most of the biggest projects in the last 20 years in Peru. You've mentioned some of them, and we have seen first place, being there where the discussions were being made, like with and facilitated many of the encounters between the government and the biggest companies in the world operating in Peru. Today we have a project to launch an accelerator that is being postponed because of time. We need more time. And we have a second project that is in the area of traditional agriculture, and that is being divided into the public side, and see how a more developmental view can support what is happening in agriculture, especially at the base. But we are also developing, since a year and a half ago, we are working on launching, on developing, and we are close, and we are moving in the process of launching an investment fund. And we have been able to, I was mentioning to you before, we have been able to develop a platform, an information platform that maps every single one of the experts of Peru to the last minimum detail. And we are developing now a complete platform of logistics for exports, because we believe that Peru is posing to become the hub, the logistical hub of the South Pacific in Peru, with the latest infrastructures that are being launched, and even in terms of irrigation. We are. I think that Peru is moving along, at least on those aspects. The government is responding. because otherwise it would be a complete failure. But I believe that there are things that we can do, and we have a team, very strong team now, and yeah, like the next event that we're gonna have is gonna be focused on environment and the environment framework for investments in Peru, but seen from the perspective of how this environmental framework helps investments, and not necessarily focused on the debate and the ideology, which is not our thing. Our thing is promoting specific investments to Peru and promoting exports from Peru. So thank you, Pablo. Let's do this again. It's super interesting.
Thank you, Jose Carlos. And when you come back, I'll take you to a market. You're gonna.
There we go.
There we go. A hope dose, a large hope dose.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody, and bye now.